Favour Nwankwo had always been the kind of girl who knew how to command a room. From her secondary school days in Enugu to her university life in Lagos, people had eyes for her. She had the charisma, the kind of sharp tongue that could slice through silence, and a confidence that made her friends call her the baddie. But for Favour, one thing never felt complete: her body. She would stand in front of the mirror at night, tracing her slim frame, and whisper to herself, "If only I had curves, I would scatter everywhere." It wasn't that Favour was ugly. Far from it. She was beautiful, with almond-shaped eyes and a skin tone that seemed kissed by honey. Men admired her, women envied her, but inside, she never felt enough. The rise of Instagram influencers didn't help either. She followed them religiously, those women with snatched waists, wide hips, and round, full backsides that made men drool. Every picture, every video was like a taunt, whispering, "You can be more. You can be perfect." Her best friend, Ifeoma, used to tease her. "CN, Favour, if you like turn yourself into Kim Kardashian, no still man way go cheat go cheat." They would laugh, but deep down, Favour didn't find it funny. She had made up her mind, she would do a Brazilian butt lift. At first, it was a dream that floated around her head, a fantasy she entertained when she scrolled through her phone late at night. But after months of seeing more and more girls coming back from Turkey, from Lagos clinics, from even backdoor doctors in Lekki, showing off new bodies and new lives, she could no longer ignore it. She wanted it. She needed it. Her family was not rich. Her father, a retired civil servant, lived quietly in Enugu with her mother who sold fabrics at Ogbit Market. They didn't understand this new world of filters and body goals. To them, Favour was already blessed. Anytime she visited, her mother would say, "NNE, you're fine like this. Don't let Lagos spoil your head." But Lagos had already spoiled her head. Favour had saved up money from her hair business and small influencer gigs, but it wasn't enough. So she started dating Chike, a Lagos big boy who liked to show off. Chike was older, in his mid-30s, a man who drove a G-Wagon and had too much money to know what to do with. He liked Favour's sharp tongue, but he loved her ambition more. When she told him she wanted surgery, he laughed at first. "Why you won't kill yourself? You dey fine like this." But Favour pressed on. She knew how to beg, how to flatter, how to threaten. Eventually, Chike gave in. One evening, over a plate of Nkobi at a highbrow lounge, he slid his phone across the table and said, "Book it. I go pay." That night, Favour's heart beat faster than it ever had. She stayed awake scrolling through clinics in Lagos, Turkey, even Ghana. She imagined herself stepping out of the hospital with her new curves, the world gasping at her transformation. She imagined endorsement deals, more followers, more money. She imagined power. But Favour didn't know that her hunger for beauty was about to open a door, one that would swallow not just her, but everyone she loved. The weeks leading up to the surgery were a blur of excitement and secrecy. Favour didn't tell her family, they wouldn't understand. She only told Ifeoma, and even then, Ifeoma nearly knelt down to beg her. "Favour, abeg no do this thing. You dey play with fire. You don't hear how girls dey die." Last week, one girl wey just graduate for Unilag collapsed after her BBL, dem say no blood clot kill am. But Favour brushed it off with a laugh. "My own no go be like that. Abeg, Ife, I no be ordinary babe. Nothing will go happen to me." Inside, though, her stomach sometimes knotted with fear. At night, she would Google BBL complications, read about fat embolisms, infections, and sudden deaths. Her chest would tighten, but then she would scroll back to Instagram and look at the lives of girls who had done it and survived, girls driving Benz, holding champagne in Dubai, wearing designer clothes. Her fear would fade, replaced by envy and determination. Chike booked her with a well-known Lagos clinic, one that advertised safety and results. The doctor, a light-skinned man who spoke with an affected foreign accent, assured her everything would be fine. "You're young, you're healthy, you'll be back on your feet in no time," he said, tapping her fire. The night before the surgery, Favour stood naked in front of her mirror. She turned to the side, examined her flat backside, and whispered, this is the last time I will ever see myself like this. She smiled, touching her waist as if sculpting the body she dreamed of. Her phone buzzed. It was her mother. Favour hesitated before answering. Favour, kiddo. I just say make I hear your voice. I'm fine, mama. How are you? We dey manage. You no go come Enugu see your papa. He dey ask of you. Favour swallowed. Guilt pressed on her chest. She had lied to them that she was attending a hair expo in Lekki that weekend. Mama, I go come soon. I promise. After the call, she sat on her bed, staring at the ceiling. She didn't like lying to her parents, but she told herself it was for the greater good. After her surgery, when money started flowing, when she became a bigger star online, they would thank her. She would buy her father a new car. She would open a boutique for her mother. They would see the sacrifice behind the secret. Morning came too quickly. Ifeoma came to her apartment, tears in her eyes. At least let me follow you to the hospital. No, Favour said firmly, adjusting her wig in the mirror. I don't want anybody dey cry for my head. Not only positive vibes I need today. Jack drove her to the clinic in Ikoyi. The building looked like a hotel, white walls, glass doors, a fountain at the entrance. Favour's heart raced as she stepped out of the car. For a moment, doubt flooded her, but then she imagined herself on Instagram in 3 months, her curves shaking the internet. She smiled and walked in. The nurses were friendly, the smell of disinfectant heavy in the air. They ran tests, took her blood, prepped her for surgery. As the anesthesiologist inserted the 4-line, Favour whispered a quick prayer, God, abeg make everything go well. Her eyes grew heavy. The last thing she remembered before darkness took her was the doctor's voice saying, count backwards from 10. 10, 9, 8. Then silence. And in that silence, destiny began to shift. When Favour opened her eyes, the world felt heavy, like someone had pressed a mountain on her chest. The hospital ceiling swam in circles above her, white lights blinding her vision. Her throat was dry, her lips cracked, and a dull pain throbbed through her entire body. She tried to speak, but all that came out was a croak. A nurse hurried over. Madam, relax. You're awake. Surgery don't finish. You go there alright. Her body felt strange, swollen, stiff. She couldn't move her legs, couldn't even lift her arms. It was as if she had been tied down with invisible ropes. Panic flared in her chest, but the nurse pressed a hand gently on her shoulder. No worry. No anesthesia still dey your system. Rest more. Hours crawled by like days. Favour drifted in and out of sleep, the pain growing sharper each time she woke. She could feel the bandages wrapped tightly around her waist and hips, the pressure unbearable. When she finally caught a glimpse of herself in a mirror across the room, she gasped. Her body was unrecognizable. Her waist was cinched, unnaturally small, and behind her, the curves she had always dreamed of stood out boldly, like sculpted hills. Even through the swelling, she could see the transformation. Her heart skipped. She wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. Jack came to see her that evening. He entered the room smelling of expensive cologne, his gold wristwatch catching the light. His eyes widened as he looked at her. Babe, you don't change oh. Favour managed a weak smile. How I be? Jack shook his head in disbelief. Forget. You go scatter internet with this your new body. No die. But Ifeoma was not so impressed. She came later, her face tight with worry. Favour, you dey breathe well so. You sure say your chest dey okay? Favour laughed softly, though the laugh turned into a cough. Ife, calm down. Nothing dey happen to me. I go soon strong. But Ifeoma wasn't convinced. She had read too many stories online, girls smiling in recovery pictures, only for news to break a week later that they were gone. She held Favour's hand and whispered, just promise me say if your body dey feel anyhow, you go talk immediately. Favour nodded, but her mind wasn't on warnings. All she could think of was her phone. She begged the nurse to hand it to her, and with trembling hands, she opened Instagram. She snapped a photo, her face pale but her figure draped under the hospital gown, curves outlined just enough to tease. The caption, "The journey to perfection starts with pain. Can't wait to show you all the new me." 2 hearts fire #Body Reborn. Within minutes, likes poured in, comments flooding her page. Omo, Favour don finally do am. Can't wait for the reveal. Our own Kim Kardashian. The dopamine rush drowned her pain. She closed her eyes, a smile tugging at her lips. She felt unstoppable. But what Favour didn't know was that beneath her flawless new shape, her body was already waging a silent war. A small clot had formed deep in her veins, a time bomb ticking quietly, waiting for its moment to explode. The first 2 days after the surgery were a blur of drugs, pain, and shallow breaths. The clinic staff moved around her room in soft shoes, adjusting for drips, checking her vitals, whispering in hushed tones. Favour tried to focus on the thought of her new body, but the pain gnawed at her like teeth digging into her flesh. By the 3rd day, the swelling had gotten worse. Her hips ached like they were filled with fire, and her chest felt unusually heavy. She told herself it was normal, just part of healing, but Ifeoma noticed something different. "Favour, your breathing no dey sound right," she said, leaning close. "It's like your lungs dey struggle." Favour waved her off weakly. "No compression garment dey make me feel like that. Ife, abeg no start your wahala." But when the doctor came in for his rounds, Ifeoma pulled him aside. "Doctor, please check her chest. She dey complain say e heavy." The doctor frowned, scribbled something on his chart, and ordered more tests. Favour rolled her eyes. She hated how Ifeoma was making her feel like a patient, when all she wanted was to heal quickly and show the world her new shape. That night, as the clinic quieted and the hum of air conditioners filled the hallways, Favour's phone buzzed non-stop. Her cryptic Instagram post had gone viral. Blogs were already speculating about her surgery, gossip pages posting side-by-side pictures of her old body and guessing what the new one would look like. Chak called, his voice full of pride. "Baby, you don't blow finish. Forget, no endorsement go soon land. No this body go change your life." His words lit a fire in her chest, stronger than the painkillers dripping into her veins. She imagined herself walking into clubs, men turning their heads, women staring in envy. She imagined brand deals, followers doubling overnight. She imagined finally being everything she had dreamed of. But around midnight, reality broke through the fantasy. She woke up struggling to breathe. It felt as though someone had placed a pillow over her face, pressing down harder and harder. Her chest rattled with every gasp. Panic clawed through her throat as she tried to sit up, but her body was too heavy. She reached for the call button with trembling fingers, pressing it again and again. The nurse rushed in, eyes widening at the sight of Favour's pale face. "Madam, you dey hear me?" Favour tried to answer, but no sound came. She clawed at the air, her lips turning blue. Alarm screamed as the monitors by her bed spiked. Within minutes, the room filled with doctors and nurses, their voices urgent, their movements sharp. Ifeoma, who had been dozing on the couch, jumped to her feet, heart pounding. "What is happening? Somebody talk to me." "Madam, step outside," a nurse shouted, pushing her back. But Ifeoma refused to leave. She clutched her chest, tears welling in her eyes, as she watched them pump oxygen into Favour, their voices clashing over one another. Pulse dropping. "Get the crash cart. Her oxygen saturation is falling." Favour's eyes rolled back, her body trembling violently. In those terrifying seconds, her mind filled with scattered images, her mother's face, her father's laughter, her own reflection in the mirror. She thought of the body she had chased so desperately, and then everything went black. The monitors flatlined. The room fell silent. And in that silence, Ifeoma's scream tore through the air. Back in Enugu, the Nwankwo family's compound was quiet, the kind of stillness that carried the weight of ordinary life. Favour's mother, Mama Nena, sat on a low stool outside her fabric shop, folding Ankara prints with the patience of someone who had lived through hardship. Her husband, Favour Nwankwo, a retired civil servant, was inside the house reading his old newspapers, their edges yellowed and curling. For weeks, they had believed their daughter was in Lagos attending a hair expo. Whenever her mother asked how it was going, Favour's voice over the phone was bright and rehearsed. "Mama, everything dey fine. I go bring small things for you people when I come back." So when the call came that evening, it cut through their lives like a blade. It was Ifeoma. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Mama, please, you need to come to Lagos. It's Favour." The fabric fell from Mama Nene's hands. "What is it? Talk to me." On the other end, Ifeoma's sobs broke into the silence. She couldn't bring herself to say the word, but the heaviness in her voice told the truth. Within minutes, chaos erupted in the compound. Neighbors gathered as Mama Nene wailed, clutching her chest, rolling on the floor. Favour Nwankwo stood frozen, the phone trembling in his hand. He was a man who had spent his entire life depending on order, on routines, but in that moment, order collapsed. Their son, Obinna, who had just returned from NYSC in Jos, rushed out of the house. "Papa, wetin happen?" "No Favour." Nobody answered directly, but the sight of his mother's tears told him enough. He slammed his fist against the wall, rage mixing with disbelief. The journey to Lagos was a blur of tears and silence. On the bus, Mama Nene clutched her rosary, muttering prayers under her breath. Favour Nwankwo stared out of the window, his face hard, but his eyes betraying the storm inside him. Obinna sat stiff, fist clenched, whispering, "Whoever do this to my sister go suffer." When they arrived at the clinic, the truth met them like a slap. The doctor, his face carefully neutral, explained in clipped English, "Your daughter suffered complications. Despite our best efforts, she went into cardiac arrest. We tried to resuscitate her for over 40 minutes, but she didn't make it." The words hung in the air, heavy and merciless. Mama Nene collapsed to the floor with a cry that echoed down the hospital hallway. "Chimo! My daughter. My only daughter." Favour Nwankwo's lips trembled, but no sound came. He turned his face away, tears streaming down his cheeks silently, as though he was ashamed of them. Obinna, on the other hand, lunged forward, his voice breaking. "You people killed her. No your greed kill my sister. If una no say una no fit save her, why una touch her body?" Nurses rushed to restrain him, but his rage filled the entire ward. Ife stood in the corner, her own face streaked with tears, guilt gnawing at her. She wanted to speak, to tell them that she had tried to stop Favour, that she had begged her, but the words died in her throat. What good was truth now, when the body in the morgue could never wake again? That night, as the family sat in the small hotel room near the clinic, silence hung thick in the air. No one ate. No one slept. The weight of the news pressed down on them, crushing. And in that silence, one question began to form, unspoken but heavy in every heart: was this the price of beauty? By morning, the news was no longer a secret. Someone from the clinic had whispered it to a friend, and before long it spread like wildfire across WhatsApp groups, gossip blogs, and Instagram pages. Screens lit up across Nigeria. Popular Lagos baddie, Favour Nwankwo, dies after BBL surgery. Her last cryptic post became a shrine. Under the caption, "The journey to perfection starts with pain," thousands of comments poured in. Some were filled with sorrow, "Rest in peace queen, gone too soon." Others dripped with cruelty, "No vanity kill am. Them no dey hear word. All these fake life girls they live for social media." In Enugu, the news broke the neighborhood apart. Neighbors who once envied the family now gathered in hushed groups, shaking their heads. "So no surgery she go do? Chai, this world don't spoil." Aunties clucked their tongues. Uncles shook their heads. Some pitied, others judged. Mama Nene could not bear it. She sat in her room, eyes swollen, rocking herself back and forth. Her once vibrant voice had become hoarse from crying. Every so often, she would wail, "Why my daughter? Why Favour?" Favour Nwankwo withdrew into silence. He didn't speak much, but his anger simmered like boiling water. He had always warned his children about Lagos life, about the obsession with money and appearances. Now, his daughter's lifeless body was proof of everything he feared. He stared at her childhood photos lined on the wall, each one stabbing him like a blade. Obinna was the loudest in his grief. He stormed through the compound, cursing social media, cursing the clinic, cursing the men who had filled his sister's head with lies about beauty. Them they use girls like product. No likes and follows kill my sister. All those fake babes where they show body online, not them deceive her. Meanwhile, in Lagos, Ifeoma carried a different kind of grief. She scrolled endlessly through the comments under Favour's post, her hands trembling. People who had never met Favour spoke with authority about her life, her choices, her death. They mocked her. They blamed her. They turned her tragedy into entertainment. She wanted to scream at them, "You don't know her. You don't know how much she wanted to succeed. You don't know how she carried her family's hope on her back." But she said nothing. Her guilt was too heavy. She replayed every conversation in her head, the warnings, the pleas, wishing she had tried harder, wishing she had told her parents before it was too late. Chike, on the other hand, vanished. The man who had financed the surgery, who once called Favour his queen, was suddenly unreachable. His phone rang unanswered, his Instagram page deleted. To him, it was simply a mess he wanted no part of. The funeral plans began, but every step was haunted by whispers. Some relatives argued that her body should not even be brought back from Lagos, that her death was a shame to the family. Others insisted she deserved a proper burial, no matter the cause of her death. Through it all, the weight of Favour's choice rippled outward, leaving cracks in places no one expected. Her death was no longer just a family's grief, it had become a cautionary tale, a viral scandal, a mirror held up to a society obsessed with appearances. And as her coffin was prepared for the journey back to Enugu, her mother whispered through her tears, "If only my daughter had believed she was already enough." The day of the burial dawned heavy with rain clouds, as though the sky itself carried the family's sorrow. In the Nwankwo compound in Enugu, mourners filled every corner. Chairs lined the yard, canopies stretched overhead, and a black and gold banner displayed Favour's smiling face, frozen forever in youth. Beneath it, the words read, "Forever in our hearts." The coffin arrived from Lagos that morning, carried in a black ambulance. As it rolled into the compound, a wail rose from the crowd like thunder. Women threw themselves on the ground, crying Favour's name. Her mother staggered forward, beating her chest, her wrapper slipping as she screamed, "Bring my daughter back to me. Chinik, Jinimia. Why you take my child?" It took 4 women to hold her up as she tried to fling herself on the coffin. Her voice cracked, raw from nights of weeping, but her grief poured out in waves that shook the entire compound. Nwankwo sat quietly on a wooden chair under the canopy, his face like stone. He hadn't cried in public since the news broke, but the wetness in his eyes betrayed him. As elders filed past to shake his hand, they muttered the same words, "No, Aya, God knows best." But he heard their whispers too. She too they follow Lagos life. This one no vanity death. If to say she hear word. Every mama stabbed him deeper. It wasn't just his daughter they were burying, it was his pride, his family name, his belief that he had raised his children right. The pastor stood and began the service, his voice solemn. He spoke of the brevity of life, of the dangers of chasing worldly things. His words cut like a sermon aimed at Favour alone. Some nodded in agreement. Others glanced at the grieving family, their silence heavy with judgment. Obinna couldn't take it. He jumped up in the middle of the service, his voice breaking. "All of una they talk like say no my sister alone get fault. This word they pressure girls every day. Social media, men, even some of una here where they gossip her body when she dey alive. She no create this system, but now she pay the price." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some muttered, "Respect the dead," others nodded silently. Obinna pointed toward the banner, his eyes blazing. "Look her face. She dey smile because she believes a better life day ahead. No dream kill her, not wickedness. So make una no turn her burial into disgrace." The air thickened with tension. Mama Nena clutched her son's arm, pulling him back down, her sobs shaking her body. The coffin was lowered into the ground, and as the red soil fell over it, the rain finally broke. Heavy drops pelted the mourners, soaking clothes, blurring faces. To many, it felt like the heavens themselves were weeping for favor. By the time the last spade of earth was packed, silence had settled over the compound. But beneath that silence was a deep unease. The community had buried a daughter, yes, but they had also buried questions they did not want to face. And in that silence, one truth lingered: Favour's death was no longer just a personal tragedy. It had become a mirror reflecting everyone's complicity, in a world where beauty was currency, and the cost was sometimes life itself. After the burial, the Nwankwo compound did not return to normal. The house that once rang with laughter now sat under a cloud of silence. Grief lived in every corner, but it wasn't the quiet kind. It was loud, restless, and fed daily by the mouths of neighbors and the cruelty of strangers online. Mama Nena barely left her room. She sat by the window each day, staring at the road as if expecting Favour to return, alive and smiling. She stopped eating, stopped caring for her shop. The bright fabric she once sewed with pride lay untouched, gathering dust. At night, her cries echoed through the compound, keeping even the neighbors awake. Favour Nwankwo, on the other hand, buried himself in anger. He spent his mornings reading every blog post, every online article about his daughter's death. The headlines were brutal: BBL gone wrong. Another slay queen lost to vanity. When beauty becomes a coffin. He would slam his fist on the table and shout, "They no even respect the dead. They don't know my daughter, but they turn her into content." Obinna carried the heaviest fire. He roamed the streets with bitterness, lashing out at anyone who dared make a careless remark. One evening, he returned home with blood on his shirt after fighting a neighbor who had mocked, all that girl wanted was Instagram fame. To Obinna, every insult was a knife, and he could not stop himself from striking back. But the hardest hit was Ifeoma. She became the unwilling custodian of secrets, the only one who truly knew how far Favour had gone to chase the body she wanted. The girl chewed at her. She replayed their last conversation at the clinic, Favour's faint laugh as she said, "Not only positive vibes I need today." Ifeoma would wake in the middle of the night, hearing that laugh in her head, followed by the flatline sound of the hospital monitors. She visited the family often, trying to help. But each time, Mama Nena would look at her with weary eyes and whisper, "Why you no stop her? You be her sister friend. Why you no drag her hand back to us?" The word sliced through Ifeoma's heart. She wanted to explain that she had tried, that Favour had been too determined, too consumed by her dream. But no excuse could soften the grief of a mother. Online, the story refused to die. Every week, new blogs recycled it, attaching Favour's picture to headlines about failed surgeries. Strangers debated her life as though she were a character in a play. Some blamed her, some blamed the doctor, others blamed the men who financed such choices. But none of them spoke her name with the love she had known at home. The Nwankwo family found themselves split between grief and shame. People no longer saw Favour as the bright young woman who once lit up every room, they saw her as a cautionary tale. Her name had become a symbol of vanity, a warning whisper to daughters at night, "Don't end up like Favour." And yet, in the quiet of the night, when the noise of the world faded, the family remembered her differently. They remembered her laughter, her stubbornness, the way she could fill silence with energy. They remembered a daughter, a sister, a friend, not a hashtag, not a headline. But the world would not let them forget the other version. And in that clash between memory and reality, the wound stayed fresh, refusing to heal. Weeks turned into months, but inside the Nwankwo household, time felt frozen. The world had moved on to new scandals, new tragedies, but for them, Favour's absence was a constant presence. It lingered in her empty bedroom, in the untouched plate at dinner, in the silence that used to be filled with her chatter. But instead of uniting them, grief began to divide the family. Mama Nene grew bitter, her sorrow curdling into blame. Some nights, she would wake Obinna with her cries, shouting, "Your sister died in Lagos, and you were busy with NYSC. Why didn't you check on her? Why you no protect her?" Other times, she turned her pain toward her husband. You never understood these children. You dey shout discipline, discipline, but when she dey suffer inside, did you even see her? Her words cut deep. Favour Nwankwo would sit quietly, jaw clenched, refusing to answer. But inside, guilt ate at him. He had always dismissed Favour's talk of beauty, calling it vanity, refusing to take her seriously. He wondered if, by ignoring her cries for validation, he had pushed her further into the arms of social media and men like Chike. Obinna carried his pain like a sword. He began drinking heavily, wandering bars in Enugu at night. Whenever he overheard anyone mocking his sister's death, he fought like a wounded animal. The police picked him up twice for street brawls, but he didn't care. He felt useless, powerless. In his mind, the world had stolen his sister, and he could do nothing but break under the weight of it. Meanwhile, Ifeoma drifted further into isolation. She stopped posting on Instagram, stopped hanging out with friends. Each time she looked at her phone, she saw Favour's last post staring back at her like a ghost. She began to dream of her, dreams where Favour would stand at the edge of a dark road, calling, "Ife, why didn't you save me?" She would wake drenched in sweat, her heart pounding. The whispers in the community didn't help. Some relatives avoided the Nwankwos, as though shame was contagious. Others made sly remarks in markets, "That's the family of the girl we die for buttocks surgery." Children even sang cruel rhymes, mocking the tragedy. One evening, as rain pounded the zinc roof, the tension finally erupted. Obinna came home drunk, shouting, "We dey here dying every day because of gossip, while the man wey sponsor am surgery dey enjoy for Lagos. Chike dey drive him G-Wagon, they drink Hennessy, while our sister dey ground. And we dey here, crying like fools." His father rose sharply, his eyes blazing. "Shut your mouth, Obinna. You think violence go bring her back? You think fighting men go clean this family's name?" Mama Nene jumped in, her voice raw. "Leave him. At least him get anger. You just dey sit like wood, reading paper as if nothing happened. No, your stubborn pride kill my daughter, you never let her talk, you never let her feel loved." The room exploded with shouting, voices clashing, each word laced with pain. The house that once sheltered love now echoed with accusations. In the middle of the chaos, Favour's photo hung quietly on the wall, her smile frozen in time. Her eyes seemed to watch them, as though asking, "Is this what my death has left behind?" And for the first time, the Nwankwo family realized that grief wasn't just breaking their hearts, it was tearing them apart. It was a hot Saturday afternoon when the storm finally broke. The Nwankwo family was still drowning in silence when a knock came at the gate. Obinna, hungover and restless, opened it and froze. Standing outside was Chike. He wasn't the glamorous Lagos big boy Obinna remembered. His eyes were sunken, his clothes rumpled, his once proud swagger dulled. Behind him stood two men in suits, carrying cameras and microphones. A popular online journalist had tracked him down and forced him to come forward, promising him a chance to clear the air about Favour's death. The compound erupted with murmurs as neighbors gathered. Word spread quickly, the man who financed Favour's surgery had returned. Mama Nene stepped out of the house, her wrapper tied loosely, her face hollowed by grief. The moment her eyes met Chike's, her knees buckled. You are the one who carried my daughter away from me." She grabbed a stone from the ground and hurled it at him, her cries echoing through the street. "God will judge you." Obinna lunged forward, fist clenched, but the men with cameras intervened. The journalist raised a hand. "Please, let him speak. Nigerians deserve to hear the truth." Chike raised his eyes, his voice trembling. I never wanted this." She said it was her dream. "I only gave her money because she begged me. I loved her." His words faltered under the heat of the family's glare. "You loved her?" Obinna spat, his voice sharp with rage. "If you loved her, why you run like coward when she died? Why you delete your page? Why you hide?" The crowd buzzed with anger. Some cursed, others recorded on their phones. Favour's story, once an online scandal, was now unfolding live in front of them. Chike's shoulders sagged. For the first time, he looked broken. "I dey haunted every night. I see her face. I hear her voice. I know say now my money push am into that theater. I came here today to beg for forgiveness, from you, from her spirit, from God. The yard fell into a heavy silence. Mama Nena shook her head slowly, tears streaking her cheeks. Forgiveness. You want forgiveness? My daughter is lying in the ground because of you. Can forgiveness bring her back? Her voice cracked, raw and trembling. The journalist, sensing the weight of the moment, asked quietly, what do you want people to learn from this story? From Favour's death. The compound turned toward the family. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Favour Nwankwo rose to his feet. His voice, steady but heavy with grief, carried across the yard. My daughter was not foolish. She was not evil. She was a child of this country, a child shaped by a world that tells our daughters they are never enough. She chased beauty because society made her believe beauty is worth more than life. Don't use her name for gossip. Don't spit on her memory. Use it as a warning. He paused, his chest heaving. If her death will mean anything, let it open your eyes. Parents, love your daughters as they are. Men, stop turning women into trophies. Society, stop measuring worth by body shape. If not, more graves will open. The compound went silent, except for the muffled sobs of Mama Nena. Even Chak bowed his head, tears dripping onto the dusty ground. For the first time since her death, Favour's story stopped being a scandal. It became a mirror. And though her body lay beneath the soil, her voice seemed to rise through her father's words, echoing into the hearts of everyone who heard, beauty should not cost a life. In the weeks after Chak's visit, something shifted in the air around the Nwankwo family. The grief was still heavy, the night still sleepless, but Favour's death no longer felt like an open one people poked for entertainment. Slowly, it became something else, a lesson, a story that carried weight. The journalist's recording of that day spread across Nigeria. Clips of Favour Nwankwo's speech trended on social media. People shared it with captions like, "A grieving father's truth," and "Beauty should not cost a life." For once, the comments were not just gossip, many were reflective, even apologetic. Women admitted how society had pressured them to alter their bodies. Men confessed their complicity in worshipping unrealistic standards. Parents vowed to hold their children closer. In Enugu, neighbors who once whispered judgment began showing up at the Nwankwo's door with food, prayers, and quiet apologies. Some said, "We judged too quickly. Forgive us." Others admitted that Favour's story had made them rethink the way they treated their own daughters. Mama Nena, though still broken, found a strange kind of strength in those visits. She began to speak openly about her daughter, not just about her death, but her life. She told stories of Favour's stubborn childhood, her sharp tongue, her laughter that filled the compound. "My daughter was more than her body," she would say, her voice trembling but firm. Obinna, too, changed. Instead of fighting, he poured his rage into something new. He began speaking at youth gatherings, warning young men and women about the pressures of social media. "Don't let likes kill you," he would say. "Don't let the world define you." His words, raw and unpolished, carried the fire of someone who had lived the pain. Even Ifeoma found her healing in action. She started a small online community, a safe space where young women could share their insecurities and encourage one another. She named it Favour's Daughters. Slowly, it grew, attracting women across Nigeria who were tired of being told they weren't enough. Each time she logged in, she felt like she was keeping her friend alive. And though Chak disappeared back into Lagos life, whispers said he had changed too. People claimed they saw him at churches, at charity events, moving differently, as if Favour's ghost had never left him. Months later, on what would have been Favour's 25th birthday, the family gathered at her grave. The rain had washed the soil smooth, and wildflowers had sprung up unbidden, bright against the red earth. Mama Nena laid a piece of Ankara cloth on the grave, her tears falling gently. "Nne, you chased perfection, but you were already perfect to us. Rest, my daughter. Rest." Favour Nwankwo stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder. For the first time in months, his voice carried something other than anger. "Your death will not be in vain. Your story has already saved lives. Obinna placed his hand on the headstone, whispering, "Sister, I go make sure nobody forget you." And as they stood there, the wind blew softly through the trees, carrying with it the memory of a girl who had dreamed too boldly, loved too deeply, and paid too high a price. Her story had begun as a tragedy. But in the end, it became something greater, a voice that refused to be silenced, a warning carved into the heart of a generation. And in that quiet moment, as the family held one another, it felt as though Favour was there too, smiling through the wind, reminding them, beauty fades, but truth endures.